14 because I had time. I have item 9, and I will know by Monday if I have any deeds. Counselor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. Items 10 and 11 relate to the agreement with Spectrum. I know we discussed this last time. Is there any questions on this? Okay, we will go to item 12.
Good afternoon, Janet Burke, the Director of Research. This is another year of a contract with Sarah Stevens, who is a consultant that helps us when we are doing ARPA things and we need some help with some backup. And we put money in the budget in ARPA early in the process, and now this is just the money that's left of that original $12,000 that we had submitted. So we're just putting up into another contract for this coming year.
Any questions on this?
I just, after this year, what happens to Sarah, because she's been helping write the ARPA grants, right?
She's been helping with some support for research when we've been doing ARPA projects.
So how many outside entities are employed like this?
I only have one. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so we only have one with your.
Correct.
Okay.
Frank, do you know if there's any more entities, or Greg, or whoever is here?
We outsource grant writing. I mean, this is basically an outsource.
Oh, no,
This is the
right,
only
for
one
grant
we're
writing,
writing? Okay.
no, this is the only one.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant in general.
Thank you. Item 13 and 14 will be discussed in executive session. We'll go to item 15.
Good afternoon, everybody. Matt OJ, Commissioner of Assessment. We've got one item requesting authorization for an appraisal for a property in litigation, 327, 329 South Salina Street. Looking for $7,500 to complete that in anticipation of an appraisal exchange date set by the court.
What's 327 South Salina?
This is one building on two properties. It's the Rainbow Store, former Learner's Department store, vacant upper stories.
Any questions on this? Item 16.
16, requesting an amendment to the tax roll for 2324. This is two adjacent properties on North Geddes Street, religious owned and used. There was some discrepancy as to use and water usage last year on tax status date. We've walked through the property and determined that the user has satisfied what it needs to under the law to qualify for a full exemption.
Any questions? Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Counselor Paniagua.
Good afternoon. Let me see. Can I borrow this one?
Sure you can.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have items 17 and 18. And the first item is an application and an agreement. Would that be you? Yes, great. Come on up.
Good afternoon. This is 2 years ago, we applied for a CDC grant working with SEIU 1199 and employed community health workers to go out and work with people that are hesitant to get the COVID vaccine. We applied initially for the grant and received it, but what was unknown is that they were going to give us more money as time went on. So now we're adding to the original ordinance. They gave us 3 years of $599,812, totaling the number that we have here. And we're just asking you to accept that so we can go ahead with that contract.
I do. I want to ask you, so when we did the workers, how many workers did we have out there?
Well, right now it's ebbed and flowed with some people leave and go to other jobs, but I think right now we have 15.
Yeah, okay. And the areas that they're hitting are the hard-to-reach communities that
Correct.
they're going to, correct?
Correct.
So
Yep.
I would like to really see how receptive, how effective have
Okay.
they been?
Yeah, we keep data on that, so I can certainly get you that information from SEIU. Okay?
Is
Any
this
other
only for
questions?
salary? Yeah, is this only for salaries, or what does the total amount include?
Primarily for salaries.
Okay.
And also salaries, the city is merely the pass-through for this application, so that, but we do have a program manager that we employed until about 3 weeks ago. It was Osha Keaton, and she has left now, so we're figuring out how to do that. But there was some salary for Osha, primarily for salaries for people. It's also, some media outreach. There's been some social media things and marketing, bringing out, T-shirts and that kind of thing for people and pop-ups. They do several pop-ups a month. So it's all in the contract there.
So are you looking to replace OSHA or taking on the work?
There's a year left, so actually a little less than a year left. So I think we may be taking that on ourselves.
And one more quickie, when you're talking about the monetary part of it. So these workers, you're saying that it's for salaries and outreach and marketing. Do they get mileage to travel to
Oh,
the different
absolutely.
places?
Yes, if they're we've got that all covered. Yeah, they get mileage, I can give you the budget if you'd like it. SEIU, we have them as a contract, and it'll tell you what's in there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Janet, could you also, when you send this to us, could you also include, as possible, the demographics of the outreach workers?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep, okay.
And if we don't spend all the money down, do we return it or what?
Well, we don't return it because we don't have it. It's on a reimbursement basis. So I have already anticipated that we probably will have some money left at the end because the grant is a fairly narrow scope. So I've asked them if they will continue after the end of the contract that
So
we have
extend it
now.
a little bit so that you can use whatever you have left.
Pardon me?
So you want to extend the term?
Yeah, that's what we've asked for, yes.
Really quick question, you may have already answered it, sorry. So we're a pass-through, the city is. Does that mean that they're city employees in this capacity then?
Well, we did have one city employee who left a couple of weeks ago. She was the program manager for the city.
Okay, so they're not
Not
city
right now.
employees then, they're just.
Not right now.
SEIU.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just one question. With the application and agreement, it was up to amount not to exceed 700,000. So this is a new application to not exceed 1.7?
No, it's not a new application. It's a continuation of the original application. And the not to exceed, we weren't sure how much that we would receive, so we put it not to exceed 7. In actuality, we received 599,812.
More, right?
Well, no, twice more.
Oh, twice more?
Yes, so that brings us 3 times 599,812 is the total. But it's on the same application.
Okay, all right.
One last question. If you do get the approval to extend the term, then you would have to replace OSHA.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't, yeah.
That's a lot, yes.
And maybe we will now. It's just difficult to find someone for a position with a finite number of months, so.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, the next, anything else? All right, the next item, thank you, Michael.
Hi, Michael Collins, Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development. So I did, just before the meeting, provide the clerk's office with a slightly updated letter that defines the fact that this MOU extension with Cities for Financial Empowerment would run through August 31st of 2025. So they're offering a 2-year extension on the MOU. They also just sent us an update where they've refreshed some of the language to it. There's no new commitments from what we'd had previously. So in the letter that I just sent, it says updated, amended MOU. But basically what this is it's the same agreement that has no cost to the city. It allows us access to the database that we use to support all of the clients that participate in the city's or in the Financial Empowerment Center, and positions us to be able to apply for funding opportunities with them. But it's otherwise it's business as usual for the program. This is just our agreement with the entity that has access to the money and provides the database at no cost to the city, which would be quite an expense on its own.
So with the database, the information would be in there, right? Because you're able to tell how much we recovered, how many people we've brought through, and they're back on their feet. You have all of that information.
So that's why I'm able to stand in front of you right now and say over the past year, we served 1,000 new clients. They saved an average of $3,500 per household. Yeah. because we do, the information we put in, we're able to pull the reports back out and be able to see information like that. We do it on a monthly basis, and again, the partner is home headquarters.
Do you put home ownership in there as well?
So homeownership is not part of this. This is specific to those that are accessing the financial empowerment counselors. The homeownership program is a separate
Right, I know it's
program.
through home headquarters, but because of the financial empowerment counselors, it gives them opportunity to be able to maybe clear their credit and go and buy a home from home headquarters.
So there is a connection are noted within there.
Yeah, but we don't, in the FEC, we don't count as homeowners though, because it's, like the homeownership center is for people buying homes. The FEC is for anybody that wants access to like financial services. So like in there, there's not a tab that says purchase a house.
I get it,
Yeah.
but if Helen came to you and I was under, and I came to the FEC and you got me back on level field, and then I can turn around and say, oh, now I can go buy a home. We don't capture any of
No,
that.
we track that as we increase your savings, we increase your credit score, you open up a bank account, things like that.
Other questions?
But if you told us that your goal was to purchase a home, then that would be listed as your goal. So like you could say your goal is home ownership, Counselor Peniagua goal can be buying a car. It would be listed in there as her
So you
goal,
do
so you
have
have
those-
met your goal.
Okay.
Yeah,
You have that, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. And that's all for me.
All righty, Counselor Gathers and Counselor Green.
Councilor Green, you want to take it or you want me to take it?
Sure, I can take it. Commissioner?
Hello again, everybody. At OJ Assessment. We are requesting permission to amend ordinance number 590 of 2016. This was the ordinance that authorized the city to enter into a lease agreement with the operator of the Marriott downtown Syracuse, encumbering our garage at 60177 South Warren Street. We are seeking permission to amend that existing lease to reflect, I think, three key tentpole sorts of changes. One, the initial lease had a base term running from 2016 to 2026. We'd like to extend that now to 2031. We would like to push off more maintenance and repair responsibilities onto the tenant, and we would like to revise the rate for the last, well, through 31 for the remainder of this now 15-year base term. All of this is done in contemplation of a payment plan to address arrearage accrued by the tenant.
So I have a couple questions in regards to this. We get the extension, right? They also went through some hardships, right? So with us pushing off the responsibility of them having the maintenance and everything like that, how are they going to be able to upkeep with the hardships? And also, if you look into the agreement, the lease agreement, if you look into Article 6, 6.2 states about payment not being received within 10 days of the due. If it's late, tenant shall pay a late charge equal to 5% of that late amount. And have we been collecting that, and is all this included within that price as well for market rate value?
I think I'd best punch to my colleague, Commissioner Canizaro, on that.
Good afternoon. Mike Canizaro, Commissioner of Finance. Can you rephrase that question again? Sorry.
Just a question, with us pushing off the maintenance to them to be able to take care of it and the upkeep and all that, they went through some hardship. How are they going to balance it too? How do we ensure that?
I think, the hardship, specifically the months we're looking at for that hardship are March 2021 through September 2021. So I think COVID and just hotel occupancy was down. I know their occupancy is up now, so we are expecting that they'll be able to pay for those costs going forward because, where the occupancy rates are back to, normal compared to where they were during that 2021 timeframe. Commissioner, maybe provide more context around this whole thing. Particularly, there was the back amount that was owed to the city that hadn't been paid, why it's proposed to forgive certain months, as well as the interest. I know these are two items, but they're clearly related. So
They're
maybe
intertwined, sure. And I can certainly speak to the back months. I think of all our tenants, which number, I don't know, a handful of them who were involved in professional or service and hospitality adjacent fields, those which were located in the center city were shut down by state government action. We were in the orange zone, effectively shutting down those businesses for a period with no recourse in 2021. Informally, we weighed each tenant on a case-by-case basis, whether they could operate effectively or not, and whether they should have rent due collected by us. The Marriott, I would say, didn't proactively engage. They didn't request any forgiveness at that time, but they were effectively shut down for a long period that time while suburban counterparts were doing business as usual. And Marriott was hemorrhaging business, both from the hotel and obviously from the garage operation across the city line. After the fact, when this was brought to our attention, we thought it only fair that for those 5 months when government was telling them they couldn't operate, that we should not be collecting rent for that. As far as the interest and late fees, I think, again, finance is probably a little better suited than I to address.
So yes, we're waiving all of the late fees for the delinquent rent, so that totals about $53,000. We're for, due to the hardship, we're forgiving about $246,000 in rent for that March 21 through September 21 timeframe. That reduces the delinquent balance to $825,000. A $150,000 down payment is going to be due within the next 2 months. So the revised delinquent balance is $675,000. We're amortizing that over the new term, so that's 92 months. And that's at a 5.3% interest rate. When we kind of did the calculation, 10-year U.S. Treasuries were going at 4.3%. So we're adding 1 point just for risk. So, that $675,000 will be collecting in total $830,532 over the next 92 months. So that's about $156,000 in interest we'll be receiving on top of the $675,000.
And also they will be responsible for any improvements, repairs of the facility itself.
They are, and they're contemplating, as business has picked back up, some repairs that were not originally contemplated in 2016, the need for which has arisen since they've been tenants, other ones that have been overdue, full replacement of elevators, that sort of thing. As the city looks to conduct itself a little more strategically in the garage business, we're grateful to have a tenant who might be taking on those responsibilities for which we're ill-equipped.
Do we have a separate contract that outlines what the terms of that maintenance agreement is?
That's what we're requesting authorization to negotiate today.
And so there'll be, a portion of that will be us monitoring exactly.
Yes, everything needs to be done in a workmanlike manner. Everything has to go through permits, certainly engineering, because we still do own the structure. There will be eyes on this.
Who handles the inspections?
Engineering, I think. I shouldn't think, I should ask. Corey.
So the inspection for garages for the work that they're doing?
Yes.
Or the condition of the garages?
Both, actually.
So, yeah, it's a combination of engineering, our building trades is involved, and also Pat Monin, who's kind of our overall parking garage supervisor. So that those three parties work together to monitor the city's garages. So they would be keeping an eye on the work that's being done, the needs that are that they might have identified. So between the three of them.
And I think maybe the council, as part of this, if we go along with this, I mean, we will want to report probably from Pat.
Sure.
On a monthly basis, maybe a couple, just to see how this is going.
No problem.
Is this our most best upkept garage that we have?
I would say the size of the garage is a challenge. I think probably our newest garage is the Washington Street garage, and I would just off the top of my head venture a guess that that's probably in the best condition, just because it's the newest.
The auditor did a report on the garages. Is there anything else that we're missing that we should know about, or just no?
Good afternoon, Nate Maroon, City Auditor. No, and we did this audit a year ago. I appreciate that, Counselor. And I think given all the circumstances and the research that we did on it, that this makes sense for the city of Syracuse and for the region, and certainly for the Marriott to operate. It's extenuating circumstances, but clearly I think the financial proposal that's been put forth by the commissioner and the city makes good sense for the taxpayer. So I personally would recommend your consideration and support of this arrangement. Thank you.
You know, I think we also got to be cognitive, I mean, as far as the March 21st through September 21st, or 2021, you know, the long-standing problems that we've had with building business back as far as the COVID and that when we shut down, I think that's still lingering out there. So I think this is probably a real good deal for the city as far as that goes. If we're going to have to, we have to save that, obviously, that building. And many of us were sitting on the council when that building was closed for many years. You know, so it's key to the economics.
And I have one question. You talked about the parking rates, right? So when you move those parking rates, that comes back to us, correct?
This would just be straight lease payments for us, so thankfully no operational attention given by us. Marriott effectively would be a pass-through. They are subleasing to various tenants, whether large blocks or daily parkers, and then we're collecting steady rent checks.
Commissioner, I don't know if I missed this, but can you talk a little bit about why the extension of the term is important for the hotel and that relationship?
Yeah, so two things. One, we're looking to extend the base simply so we can amortize the arrearage over that 92-month period that Commissioner Canizaro mentioned. Without that, with 3 years left in the base, that would be an all but crippling monthly payment for the operator. But in order to survive, the hotel formerly known as the Hotel Syracuse needs to be attached to a national flag for booking and branding and numerous other reasons. Those are ordinarily 25-year agreements. They need parking, if not on site, then adjacent to site, and that is essentially the only practical option for them. So without this parking attached, there would be no Marriott flag on that structure, and without a Marriott flag on that structure, there wouldn't be an operating hotel there.
Counselor, I just want to add to that, that the original agreement had 3 renewal periods, 5-year renewal periods. So really, they just basically took one of those 5-year renewal periods early and extended it out to 31. So it's not giving, you know, providing more, a longer term, you know.
Yes, we're preserving the back two. Some successor to me and Mike will be here in 2031 saying we'd like to negotiate a new extension under new terms, but this is exactly what we would have been doing in 26 with a rate yet to be established when we got into this lease agreement. This is just essentially our exercising the first of 3 renewals a little early.
A question. So with the financial rates, interest rate being the way they are, and assume that, you know, a year from now, a year and a half from now, that those rates somehow go down with the inflation cooling, does that give them the opportunity to come back to us and say, can we negotiate, or this is locked in?
Locked in. We would have to come back before you for any modifications between now and 31.
I'm all set. Yeah.
All righty, Councilor
you all.
Gathers.
Thank you, Madam President. As items, I believe it's 21 through 37. The first one being 21, the agreement with truck and haulers. I believe Commissioner Robinson is going to come up and speak about this one.
Good afternoon, councilors. Jeremy Robinson, DPW. Back in August, we did an RFP seeking contractors to help Andy Jakubowski and his environmental service team with large cleanouts such as legal dumping, evictions, stuff like that. We got one proposal back, and that was with Chuckett Haulers. We did a interview process on about September 12th. Asked them told them about our expectations, and we figured we'd give them a try just to help Andy Jakubowski and environmental service team. They've been spread thin. They do a lot of things for the city. He's our Mick Jagger, and when Mick Jagger asks for help for leading the Stones, we should probably give it to him.
Which is going to be my next question, Commissioner. What's the, if you can explain to us why this is necessary for the city and for the work that you guys are doing?
You see it all over the place. There's dumping grounds over there in Kirk Park Drive where there's hundreds of tires. They sit for days on end because of Andy's getting pulled in different directions. There's evictions that happen on streets that we can't get to in a timely manner. Andy can pick up the phone, call Chuck it, said, right now there's yada, yada, yada. They go and pick it up.
Does Chuck It pay for the disposal of those tires, or does the city pay for that?
Contract in front of me, do you? Speaking to my fearless leader, whoever gets the better rate, they'll pay for it, and then we'll bill whoever property owner is.
Okay, so this is just for people power, then this isn't for trash tonnage disposal?
No. It's for pretty much everything that's in the right of way that we need to pick up that's illegal, like illegal dumping, tires.
Right, but I'm just wondering, because we know trash is expensive, right? That's why we reduced and we gave carts so that we don't have to pick up the trash for everybody and their brother in the city anymore. So, and because it's expensive, I'm just wondering if that dumping is in that $200,000 amount, but it's not. Got it. Okay, answer my question. Easy enough.
I just forgot the name. The guy that you mentioned in relation to Mick Jagger, what's his name that you said?
Andy Jagabowski?
Andy, yes.
Yeah, Andy J.
What is, just explain, what's his role again? I'm sorry.
He's the superintendent of environmental service.
And when they make a phone call to say what? They say that, we have X amount of tires over here, this needs to be cleaned up. His guys are already going somewhere else, so this is just an added help to us to help get rid of all this debris.
It's basically.
Andy's like the SWAT team.
I mean, if everybody worked with him in the council, I'm quite sure.
We have problems behind the Salt City Market. He goes down there with his guys. They clean it right up. It's an incredible job. We got dumping over by, over by the Inner Harbor all the time. He's always swinging over there. And he just doesn't have a lot of resources, really. Just him and a few guys. And this thing, I think, is more or less, you're sort of like in support of codes here and evictions and all that.
Exactly.
Like unique situations like the tires and everything else all piles up in the neighborhoods. And Andy does, I'm on the phone to him quite a bit, let's say that. So.
Back on that, we had a huge clean out, I think it was on Burnett. You should see the before and after pictures. Yeah. He's amazing.
Well, we all know about that, don't we?
It's amazing.
I'm okay with this one because I said on the RFP and it's only a year's contract, right?
Yes.
But I do know when we talked about it on the RFP that there was only one bidder. So the next RFP, we're going to circulate it a little bit more so that we can bring more people into the fold to bid on this.
I agree. We need more people to bid on this.
And Chuck It. Tell them to go right there on the same street Parks and Rec is on and pick that stuff up out the back.
Get the couches.
I'm telling you, it ain't a couch this time. It's all kind of stuff, and we need it picked up.
I got it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Number 22.
Good afternoon, councilors. Eric Gunnis, Neighborhood and Business Development. So items 22 and 23, this is companion pieces, but essentially this is for making structural repairs and improvements for the Center Armory Garage. The Center Armory Garage in Armory Square is owned by CITA. However, it's part of the city's garage portfolio that's managed by Laz Parking. So working with city engineering, we've identified several structural improvements that need to be made to the garage. And so we've worked with CNS companies to develop that scope of work and ultimately what the repairs that are needed. Now, as part of the existing agreement between CITA and the city, CITA is coming and making a contribution to split the cost of the ultimate repairs and the improvements with an amount not to exceed $500,000. So the legislation before you is to accept the up to $500,000 amount once the 50-50 cost sharing is undertaken based on the final cost of the improvements to the garage itself. And then the second piece of legislation would also be to modify the original ordinance with the agreement between CITA and between the city, and that would extend for a 3-year period for that continued agreement between the city and CITA. And then the goal would be to immediately undertake those repairs, make those improvements, and then make sure that this is a functioning garage for the years to come. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Number 24.
Good afternoon, councilors. Ken Towsley, Street Lighting Manager. I have items 24, 25, 26, and 27. Looking for the sale and issuance of bonds to cover interstate lighting and street lighting in the city.
All right, Mr. Towsley, I'm gonna come back to this. Talked about it in leadership earlier, right? Because we're talking about 81, correct? We're talking about the interstate with the lighting.
690,
And
81,
81.
and all the on-ramps, off-ramps associated with it.
Okay, so the city of Syracuse is not the only people that's connected to the 81 interstate. So we're the one footing the bill, which I have, therefore, whatever. It runs through DeWitt, it runs through East Syracuse, and I think personally, this is just my thinking, okay? That at this point, since 81 is being redone, now would be the time to go in and ask for some more money to help with this lighting that is not just a city issue.
Yes, Madam President. I've met with Corey, Joe Barry with the Law Department. We've discussed this. The agreements that we have with the state DOT in regards to the interstate lighting that covers just various sections of 81, 690, and all other parts of it have all expired. We have one existing contract or agreement with the state, and that's the Teal Ave project that occurred about 5-6 years ago. That's the only one that's open at this time. The state does want to have a umbrella agreement to cover all of what the city has, and that's where our discussions are, looking for what can we get in return if we're going to be required to maintain it.
That's right.
And those are things that we've discussed. We've asked for an addition of a 10% increase of the fixtures that they're buying for the 81 upgrade. Give us 10% more to have in stock, and we can replace them. Other items that we've discussed, just going forward, what can we do to do it? How do we get the county to help? What can we do to make this work where it's not solely on us?
And I appreciate that because, again, when we talk about 81, Syracuse is not the only people that 81 is running through. So Syracuse should not be just tagged with being responsible for all of that.
And that's just how it was written many, many moons ago, long before any of us were here. And the thing is when it comes to interstates, if the municipality that the interstate runs through requests it, that's what the state has always said, that the city's required, the municipality is required to maintain it. So if you go through Geddes by the State Fair, there's no lights. Town of Geddes does not want lights there because they can't handle the maintenance of it.
So what if we turn off our lights?
That was one thing that was discussed. What do we do to turn it off?
Safety.
So
I think contract 4 of the 81 project is not finalized yet because that's part of the complicated
4.
court. So contract 4 is the 690 piece of that. So this might be a really good opportunity, like you said, to look and see if there's room in there to modify the lighting plan.
We
for our
should, because
take.
we're asking for sidewalks, we're asking for water lines, we're asking for all of this. Let's toss that in there too and ask for that.
speaking with Joe Driscoll, dealing with this, it's about what can we get in return? If we're going to maintain this, because the increase of, right now we have 848 lights that deal with the highway, on-ramps, off-ramps. There's going to be an increase of about 250 additional lights once this project is 100% completed. So now you're looking at over 1,000 lights that we're going to be responsible for. And at least now we have a better opportunity to maintain them than we did in the past. Now, that's part of the problem as well, is that they were not maintained 30, 40, 50 years ago. Now you're running into problems. A good example is our contractor was out.
1,000 lights, right? So when you're up on that highway doing those lights, we don't control highway traffic, right? So that's a whole nother issue to shut down the traffic moving.
So those are things that we're working with the state on in regards to traffic control. So there's certain rules that you can abide by. You're only allowed to shut down parts of the highway between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. unless you want to do an overnight shift. Those are things that we're working on. Those that we're working on now as we speak are dealing with on-ramps, off-ramps, where it's very limited traffic control, where the contractor or our city guys have that capability of detouring the traffic, to another lane, or the access coming from the side streets to the backside of the highways. For example, Canal Street to get to 690, Burnett to come on the other side of 690. 81, you can work off of Kelthrop, you can work off of State Street to work on some of those lights. Those are areas that we know we can be safe. We don't have to worry about the traffic. Problem is that now as we go forward, there's those lights that we have to troubleshoot and get to the light. Now we're looking at shutting down lanes, and that's where we're trying to work with the state to get something going forward.
Okay, well, we keep working with the state because we're picking up their trash anyway off the highway.
What a great opportunity for our state delegation to get in there and advocate for us.
Imagine. The lighting, the street poles that are going to be installed in the city. Is there a list of those poles with the lights and all that type of stuff with the National Grid Tariff project?
With the
And this, in relation to this, they said that they're also going to be installing new poles being installed in neighborhoods served by the legacy price and exception equipment
Those-
that's listed.
Yep, those are ones that we do within the neighborhoods. So that's not falling under the interstate. I can definitely get you what the
Yeah, I was
state
gonna
is
say,
looking to do
what
for the
neighborhoods are we-
interstate.
yeah.
And then if you want a neighborhood breakdown of what types of fixtures we have,
I just want to know what neighborhoods are getting the fixtures.
Locations,
Yeah, what
exactly.
locations, yeah.
there's no additions. These are all replacements.
Okay.
So there are a handful. Counselor Schultz asked for one over on corner of Park and Rugby due to a corner store. We did a lighting assessment. We talked to the police department. That's a Cobra head going on a wood pole. That's an application we put in. Any decorative fixtures that you're looking at, it goes through a process where we have to determine if it's a special lighting district, and then there's a whole process that falls underneath that.
How many decorative are you looking at, though?
To add,
Yeah.
right now, we're not looking to add any. I'm looking to replace. We have a lot of accidents. You'd be amazed at how many accidents we have. I'd say on average, we've got to replace 20 to 25 decorative poles every year.
But we're charging the people and their insurance companies for that,
As
right?
long as we get the, as long as it goes claimed on their insurance, the law department sends me the bill or sends me what the accident is, I'll do the invoice and we do bill them.
There's a lot of accidents at the lights.
Like running into them.
Okay, so, question. How are you today first?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, all right. So, the parks, where are we with the lights in the parks?
Oh, it's funny you shall ask that, Counselor. We started the solar light installation today. 2 lights up at First Ward Cemetery were the first 2 we did. Those, as I speak, should be done 100%. They're working their way around, and we are hitting up Homer Wheaton,
Okay.
Berry, Heath, Huntington, Lewis, Libby-Cotton, and Ormond Spencer.
What happened to McKinley?
McKinley has existing lighting.
Say that
It
again?
has existing lighting already. And there's an item down the road that Owen Kearney will speak about. We'll talk about that. Those are looking to be, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
These are those that don't have any lights whatsoever. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to add those lights to take that darkness out. And that's what we discussed. Those were the ones that we chose.
No, I was
on.
familiar. I just thought for some reason we had McKinley on that too. That was one of the parks, I thought.
McKinley has the underground aluminum lights through it, similar to Kirk Park and Schiller Park. There may be the option of additional lights going down the road, but once again, these are where we wanted to start, see where it goes, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
So Ken, with the interstate lighting, we've been in negotiations with the state. Where are we, like, specifically in those negotiations?
No, it's only stayed internal in the city for right now. We have not
Just the
presented
state?
anything to the,
And we haven't got a,
nope, we haven't even talked to DOT. We've talked internally in regards to what it is we want to have for the agreements going forward. Because they're going to want, say we don't have any problems whatsoever. The state wants an umbrella agreement to cover all of it. They want to, right now we have piecemealed agreements. 690 from Thompson Road to Peach Street, 690 from Pete to Teal, 81 from 7th North down to Destiny. Those are all piecemeal agreements that have all expired. So now the state wants one agreement to cover the city of Syracuse and all lighting under one agreement. Now we're trying to figure out what's the best way we can come back at them and say, we don't want to do that, or we want to do it, but we need something in return.
And in the meantime, you're just honoring the existing or the expired contract, or you're just
Yeah,
in
we have,
limbo?
we still have to, I can't let these things all go dark.
Okay.
Why not?
Ellen?
Let's go dark.
Safety.
So, if I'm up here, can I do item 29 as well? Or do you want me to wait?
Sure, you can go ahead.
You want to do 28 next week? 29 is, we're requesting the purchase of the street lighting decorative fixtures, poles, aluminums, solar lighting assemblies, and sensors. What I'm asking for is to utilize 4 companies, Spring City, who deals with all our decoratives, Fon Rock Lighting, who's dealing with our solars, Hapco, who I get all the aluminum poles for, and then Quantella, who deals with the software and the sensors for the lights themselves for us to control them. The biggest reason for this is uniformity throughout the city, staying with the same contractor or the same distributors that made these and go forward, in lieu of going through a third party, be it Wesco or Cooper Electric or Graybar, where they add their markup. Now I buy it directly from them and keep the price low for us.
We get credit for scrapping the old poles?
We go into a metal dumpster and however that works through, whatever, so we do scrap it. We don't,
Okay.
we do scrap it all. Be quick, we gotta be quick to get them though, because there's scrappers who grab them before me. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Good job, Ken.
Item 28.
Have anyone else work on them or get any parts from anywhere else?
Kind of
The
cameras.
sewer cameras.
Sewer cameras. So, if we have a clog or something in the sewer system, we send a camera down there. Pretty cool. You should come down there and look at it. Man, the things that you see
Yeah,
is
you
not
find
going to
some
be cool,
fun
but it's pretty
stuff,
cool
I
that.
bet. Ew.
Yeah, okay. Councilor Hogan, he's right. You might want to pass. Hey, they make me do these things. They said if I'm going to be the commissioner, you got to experience everything. So,
Thank you, sir. Number 30. Make sure you got the rest of them, 30 through 37, I guess.
I do. Commissioner Awald, Department of Water. So 30 is, we're asking to enter into agreement with the town of DeWitt. Similar situation with the village of Skaneateles. They're asking us to help operate their system. Their licensed operator retired about a month ago, so they're without a licensed operator. So we would assist them in operating their system for reimbursement. Any questions?
You know, that was gonna be my question, right? So,
Correct.
for reimbursement.
Correct.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's a rate schedule. Is it not in the book? If not, I will get you a copy of that rate schedule that we put together.
I don't see it.
Okay.
Is there one in there?
I'll forward that over. That way you have it.
I was just saying that we don't normally put a rate schedule in with the transfers, but if they request it, you can.
Rate schedule is going to be part of the agreement.
Okay, there you go, yeah.
Next one, sorry.
All right, so let's see. 31. This is to authorize capital cash transfer for our lead service inventory. We're required by the State Department of Health to have an inventory of all public and private service materials by October 2024. So we're going to be doing investigations and research, which we've already doing already, but any kind of additional research we need to do to get a complete inventory of every water service in the system. This is also, we have a state grant and it's reimbursable.
Is this a public-facing document that you'll share once it's all
Correct.
inventoried?
Part of the requirement from the DOH is that we have a public portal where you can look at your own service to see what it is.
Does that exist currently, or that's what this is?
That does not exist currently. This is what this will help facilitate.
And the timeline of when that will be live-ish?
It is due and required by DOH by October of 2024.
Okay, thank you.
32.
32, cash capital transfer for facility securities. As we're doing our routine facility checks and investigations, we're looking at installing a few more security cameras and/or card swipes for access to buildings and facilities. Any questions?
33.
33 is our cash capital transfer for fire hydrant replacement. This is our annual request. We typically replace approximately 80 hydrants per year. 60 of them are routine replacements or stuff that we find, an additional 20 plus typically we have in our capital projects.
And if we find out who hit them, we charge insurance
Correct.
company.
We get a DR number, we contact the insurance company and bill them for the complete work.
How much does a hydrant cost?
That just increased the ballpark for an average hydrant. Average hydrant being depth of 5.5 feet is about $3,500.
And who is responsible for keeping them painted?
That would be us as well.
Okay, who is authorized to paint them?
A specific person, but it's just us in the department.
I mean, the department or anybody in the community who said,
No,
hey, I want to
it's-
spruce that up.
There's special paint so it doesn't peel off and doesn't get as corroded from the salt from the roadway. So we will typically pull the old ones off. We can either scrape them. In a recent last year or so, we purchased a sandblaster to sandblast the paint off and repaint it. But there is special paint to be applied to it.
So the community can't just paint it, or can they contact your office and say, I'd like to go help that hydrant?
District councilors can do it.
I figured as much. I was going to follow your lead.
And for my
And me and Rashida came from Christ, so we can sandblast them.
Excellent. We need all the help we can get. We got a booth ready to set up and go.
Okay.
So now, before you go, so it's 3,500 a hydrant. How many hydrants?
That'll get us about 55 hydrants, but we typically do 60 to 80 every
I'm
year.
not saying how many hydrants do we have in the city?
Oh, 5,500.
5,500, okay.
A year.
Yep. Any other questions?
Joe, who does the vegetation, the maintenance, the cutting of grass around hydrants? Because I had somebody ask last week, I guess there's one in my district that need help. Is it you or
The
DPW?
city right away most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. We maintain the hydrant itself, so if it's like grown over with trees, we'll go out there and like cut everything down, clear it out so you can get to it. We've also coordinated with like the fire department to assist on certain things like that as well.
So I should just call you?
That's the ticket. Call
Call
Joe.
me. All right, 34 is a cash capital transfer for PRV pit vaults. PRV pits are pressure reducing valve vaults. We have several throughout the system, which can, connect different pressure districts. So if one pressure district needs additional water for any number of reasons, it'll open up and supply that district. In our routine inspections we've been doing more frequently, we've noticed a couple are at the end of life or are inoperable, so they need a full replacement. Any questions? $35, cash capital transfer for rehabilitation of Skinny Atlas facilities. There's a lot of miscellaneous things that need to get done out in Skinny Atlas, such as stairway replacement. We have some building enhancements to do, some additional chemical interior treatment for the new fluoride facility we just put in. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This is just off the cuff here, right? So we maintain, we house, we do all of that for Skinny Atlas, right? What if we didn't do that? What would happen?
If we didn't do,
If we didn't maintain it, if we didn't have anybody sitting on the property doing the housing, if we just, what would happen?
had a vacant, that, so the rental there in Skinny Alice is, I think, key to our response for turbidity events, because they can crop up pretty quickly. So that person there is monitoring the turbidity alarms, and if we start seeing an uptick in turbidity, he's able to go down, because he lives right above the facility, and start shutting down the intake so we don't have any violations.
That comes through our water supply.
Correct. Yes, that is our complete water supply, and we're mandated to not have turbidity events.
So we're just being the shepherds of our water. Okay.
Correct. Any other questions?
36.
36, cash capital transfer for valve repair and replacement. We've been doing a lot more proactive valve inspections to see what we have out in the system and if they are broken or inoperable. We're now scheduling them to get fixed, so as we need them in emergency or routine manner, they are now operable. So this is to purchase more valves to replace the ones that are not working. Any questions?
What's those things on the outside of the hydrant? Those are the valves that you turn?
On
to
the
open
outside
it?
of the hydrant
Mhm.
is you got the 3 nozzles on the hydrant. That is the hydrant assembly itself. The valves are actually mainline valves that are on the water lines that will operate to shut a block down or turn the block on.
And I asked that question to say that, again, I see everything. So when I see folks with our things wide open, does that affect some of this?
It doesn't affect the valves, but it will affect the system and how it operates. So if you have a hydrant running full open, it will, depending on where it is and what's feeding that hydrant, it can reduce pressure in that part of the district because you're taking a huge demand that's not normally seen. But it's there for capacity-wise for fire conditions.
All right.
And 37 is cash capital transfer for repairs to our gatehouse and our pump houses. Right now, we're looking at, we've started to do a survey of all of our gatehouses along the conduits from Skinny Atlas into the city, and looking at what kind of repairs need to be done at those facilities. Pretty much 90% of those facilities were built in 1892. So
How many gatehouses?
I believe we have over 14 all along the conduits.
1892 was a big year for gatehouses.
It was a good year.
Play that in the lottery.
All right, if there's no further questions, thank you, Commissioner. Madam President, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have item 38. Okay, I'm going to ask Owen to come up with, and this seems like a really interesting and great project here.
Agreed, Counselor. It's opportunity, again, Owen Kearney, Deputy Commissioner for Planning and Sustainability. This is a grant opportunity with the U.S. Department of Energy to provide funds for, in this case, energy efficiency upgrades, retrofits, and as Ken mentioned earlier, working with the Parks Department, we have identified solar lighting in parks as an eligible project and one that we feel would be a good fit for these funds if awarded. So before you today is a request, simply just authorization to apply for and enter the grant. And if awarded, we would further develop this program. But I had listed parks that we're looking at that would be good candidates for this additional or upgraded and new lighting.
So you have the list because it says for low income and disadvantaged communities. So you have that list of those disadvantaged communities.
Mike's on here.
Oh, you're on.
There it is. These parks would all be eligible for these upgrades. And in working with the Parks Department, these were ones that either had inadequate lighting, lighting that might be difficult to maintain, lighting that needed upgrades, just in general, working with them, in addition to all the work that Ken mentioned, that'll be using city funds to make those upgrades. These are parks that would be good candidates for this new lighting.
And they're smaller parks, more neighborhood park
That's
oriented, were used by the community, Logan Park, Clinton Park, Leavenworth, Spirit of Jubilee. So this is excellent right here, I think.
Okay, I mean, and it's not just specific for parks. You're going to use this program for other areas, right?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah.
I apologize.
And to me, that it's just not just for parks. It's going to be community spots that you identify around the community.
That's correct. We're focused on parks with this project, this funding, which would meet again, we have to comply with the Department of Energy's grant parameters, so this meets them. I'm sure we could all find additional places where lighting upgrades would be valuable, but these would all be eligible for this grant funding. And I should mention, and Ken just mentioned to me, reminded me, these are pulling lights off the grid. These would be solar-powered lighting. So really, ultimately, the intention is that the grant would cover the full cost of the new lighting and the installation, and these would be off the grid. So it's ultimately an energy efficiency upgrade. And so a lot of benefits all the way around, improving lighting, improving our neighborhood parks, federal funding for this, and it just ultimately improving quality of life and safety in these parks.
Do you have a sense of the turnaround of this?
It appears to be a relatively quick program in the sense that we would apply, it's a rolling application. So if authorized by this body, we would apply next month. And I imagine that would be a 60 to 90 day turnaround. So I would imagine this would be a next year project, next calendar year.
How does this affect, so we're working on putting lights all throughout the city, right? To make things more efficient as well as the parks. Why aren't we doing this to the rest of the parks too? Or it's just not feasible?
The lighting that this grant, you have to take lighting off the grid. These are hardwired lights currently in all the parks that are listed in my legislation request. So pulling these off that grid and putting solar lights in meets the grant qualifications. And it sounds like in Ken's earlier remarks, there is a broader focus on the parks he listed. So I think between, if awarded, this grant opportunity, the work that Ken's requesting funding for, we're looking at 15 to 20 parks that would see these lighting upgrades and consistent upgrades, consistent project, and ultimately improve energy efficiency and improve quality of life in the city.
So the timeline aligns with Kent's timeline. I think that's what.
They're two separate timelines. They're related projects. They're complementary projects, but they are two separate projects. Ken's funding is city funding.
The question is, are they aligning so that you're not putting lights, street lights or whatever that is in the parks, and then you're going to come in and then do this, and then it would clash?
No, these would be coordinated, and thankfully Ken, as the street lighting manager, is going to be working on all of this. So there will be consistency in that general vision that we're working towards. We'd make sure we're not conflicting or duplicating work. That's exactly right, Counselor.
I got a question for Ken. Ken, so with lighting that are on the main grid and then the solar lights, what's the advantage in terms of life in terms of maintenance? Yes.
So with what I told, with the research I did with Fauna Rock Lighting for the solar lights, the battery life is 10 years. Everything is guaranteed for 5. So we're looking at a 10-year battery. Now, fixture will say 5, but battery life is the key for any solar piece of equipment. As long as the battery's good and you maintain it and you preventive maintenance it, meaning that you open up the door, you oil it, you do what you need to do to prolong that life. I would say minimum 10 years for the solar lighting, unless we get a blackout.
And with that, so assume we get the award and we get all of this funding to put all of this in. Are we building and projecting potentially the cost of maybe having to replace maybe a battery and, in relative to if we keep it on the grid, the cost of maintenance?
Yep, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I believe that would still fall under the maintenance side of things for street lighting. So be it a battery for a solar light or a new LED fixture for one on Main Street. That would be all part of that whole maintenance side of things going forward.
And in terms of cost?
Each fixture or each assembly is about $4,400 for the solar lights. That's with an 80-watt fixture and the array. But I can definitely break it down, get some breakdowns in regards to what each individual, if I need a new battery, what that would cost. I could tell you for a fact an 80-watt LED fixture to change is $275 plus labor. So And I would say the battery itself would probably run you about the same.
I think, the direction we're going in, Owen and Ken, I think it's a good direction. I remember, going to places like Henniger, the Sunnycrest Park, and just playing ball and get excited, and the light is just a little dim, And I think
That's
so.
why you missed that basket.
You should have.
That was a good one.
You should have seen my shot last night. But I think just being able to update, these lighting in these areas where it's heavily used, I think it's good. And when this grant does come back, I think we should have a collective conversation as to where they should be going for sure.
To Councilor Majok and President Hudson's, not a few fellows, but we're just talking about federal money. And I'm just wondering, Corey, have we made contingency plans as far as if there's going to be a federal shutdown?
Don't go nowhere, Ken. Come back.
Maybe, I think that probably, I'm sure you're going to keep the council updated on any kind of procedural things. It's like we've been through this before.
It has. It has.
So.
And as a person who was a federal employee during the 2013 shutdown, it's not fun. So yes, we have been doing a call out to departments to assess how they anticipate any potential shutdown affecting their operations. We did do this exercise back in 2021, in September 2021, when we thought there might be a shutdown. So there is some information we can refer back to. The shutdown did end up happening then, and hopefully it doesn't happen now. But, I think in the short term, like a lot of folks, we don't anticipate any major impacts in the short term. Cash flow, all that should be fine. But, if it does drag on weeks and months, there are reimbursements that engineering gets for their projects. There are some impacts to CDBG where we wouldn't enter into contracts until, we were able to have that resolved. But, hopefully it's a short period of time and we don't anticipate any impacts in the short term, but depending on how long it lasts. And of course, we'll keep the council updated.
I don't want to beat down the lighting, not you, Corey,
Good.
Owen and Ken. So we're gonna do this with Ken for your lighting. Then we're gonna come back to you for the solar lighting. I just don't want to see, and I know you said it's not duplicating, you're going to be working together on this, but let's just say for argument's sake, I'm just going to say 5 years. So 5 years down the road, what would be the reality that you would come back again and say, well, we want to switch out these hardwired lights into solar lights, so that'll be hardwire money we done already wasted and spent. Not wasted, but spent. And then you come back and want to do solar.
So just to clarify one thing, the parks that I'm doing right now, that was under a CIP that was approved by this body this spring. So that is solely, like I said earlier, solar lights going in parks that don't have any light. Or Lewis Park is an example where it has a couple lights up top, then the lower field doesn't have any lights. So those are what we did with that CIP project. All right, Owens for the grant is those parks that have existing hardwired, powered LED lighting, or they were not changed out. A good example would be Onondaga Geddes Play Lot on the corner of West Onondaga and South Geddes. Sits up on a hill, there's one light that's up there now. It doesn't work, never got changed, never got fixed. So in lieu of us putting a hardwired in there, that went to the grant saying, all right, we're losing the hardwire, what we pay for to National Grid, and we'll put in a solar. So as we go forward, there won't be that duplication where I'm putting in a hardwired in a park. If I go forward and this works out the way we believe it is, my goal is working through grant money or through CIPs, changing these out to solar.
Okay, that's really what my question was, because down the road, will we end up putting more solar in than hardwire?
I would like to think so, and I'll give you an answer probably in a couple of weeks once all the ones are up, and we'll take a look and see how they look and see how bright they are, and we'll go from there.
Well, you come back and give us.
I'll pick you up at 9 o'clock, and we'll go drive around. How about that, Councilman?
At night?
Huh?
At night?
Yeah. How do you think I check the lights?
Okay. Did we get done with you?
Thank you, President Hudson.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councilor Hogan. Councilor Majok. That's 22 million.
$1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not working for him.
Item 39 to 48, and they look like they're all police items, so I don't see Chief Mon or any of these people here.
He got
Go
it.
ahead.
He got it.
No, most of the chiefs are at training this week, so I'm what you guys get. Brian Lutz, Police Department.
Lucky us.
Right. Hopefully I can answer your questions. Item 39 is a request for you guys to approve us to accept a donation from Catholic Charities. They've requested to put a COPS camera at their facility at 1801 Erie Boulevard East. By accepting that money, we'll put the camera there. We'll have the ability to view it. It'll be consistent with the rest of the COPS camera system.
As a First District Counselor, I want to say thank you very much for doing this. This is greatly needed, and I hope it happens sooner than later and gets prioritized right at the top, because there's a lot of need over there.
Thank Catholic Charities, they came up with the money, so.
So I don't know if you can answer this question or not. The data that's going to be stored off of this camera, it's a cost to the city, right? Are they going to also be paying for that data? Do other organizations that do donate the money for the cameras, do they also pay for the storage fees and all that type of stuff, or is it just a one-time camera installation fee and then after that it's done?
To the best of my knowledge, in the past, like SU made a donation a few years back to put some cameras up in that area. It was a one-time cost to get the cameras installed.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have a question. I know you might not, I don't know if this Debbie Owens or is this Corey, as we talk about the cameras. There's a list that you had, the police department and the city sent out of cameras, and where are we? Main number one is, where's these cameras for these parks that was supposed to be done a couple weeks ago?
Before we go, so just while she's coming up, I believe that the purchase of the camera is a cost value added to the city.
Okay.
It puts the camera in a position where we would need a camera, to Councilor Schultz's point, and collection of the data, which I can understand your point. I really believe it's an added value to our ability to monitor the needs of the city, particularly because of that new facility there. And they have been really cooperating with us to secure that area.
Okay.
But before you answer Councilor Caldwell's question, I do understand about the cameras. I do understand the value of them. And when I drive through that area, so you catch something on that cop camera, sir, and what do you do about it? Because we know, what do you do about it? So if you catch something
Yep.
In progress?
in that area, I know, yeah, and how do you handle that? What do you do about it?
Yeah, so I mean, typically what would happen, an incident would happen at that location or nearby where we go, we review the footage and we see what took place. It becomes evidence to whatever case might be built towards an individual
If
who
you
say.
find them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
You would dispatch police as well, right? If you see a crime in progress and you're monitoring live?
If we are monitoring live and see something, absolutely. Yep.
Do you have a list of, my question's still the other one, got to be answered.
Corey.
But do you, sir, do you have a list? I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Brian Lutz.
Brian, thank you, Brian. Do you have a list of other hot spots in the community where you think it should be cameras? And they're located near businesses, is the reason why I'm asking.
I don't have it,
You
but
know? Okay.
I can go back and let the chiefs know that, you would like a list of something similar.
Yeah, where there's hot spots in neighborhoods.
The other thing around the hotspots, if you can remember the application you approved to DCJS for the SEPTED, those were targeted for hotspot areas. Still waiting for approval of that money through the state budget, but.
I thought we were gonna look at moving.
So let me just make sure I'm not
No,
conflating different topics.
No, you're talking the same project.
So that SEPTED operation includes demolition, tree clearing, and some cameras in hotspot areas like Richmond, that
Right.
area. We had the fortunately, the Lieutenant Governor was in town a couple of weeks ago, so I made mention of the application. Probably a week later, not a week later, a couple of days later, I got an email from his assistant for DCJS. It's in the budget office at the state, and so it has moved since I've talked to the Lieutenant Governor.
And that location that we're talking about here was not a hot spot, unfortunately, and it has become one because of the new development that went there to take care of a vulnerable community, so.
And just want to emphasize the Catholic Charities has been amazing partners for us in that area and trying to be very good neighbors to the businesses in particular.
Right. And that was very nice. That's why I said, what other hotspots that are near major businesses that maybe we can partnership with, you know, to provide cameras.
Got it.
And wait a minute, before you go switch off, are you still on this question? Okay, okay.
Brian? Thing ain't working for me. So,
You just ain't talking right. You don't have to just open your mouth.
hi, hello?
Just keep going, just keep talking. Oh, what did you got it on? There you go. You're on
There you
mute.
have it. So, Brian, with this camera going in, sharing of data, so is there part of it going to Catholic Charity and part of it coming to us, or is it just straight to us?
We'll retain all the data, sir.
Okay, so they're just paying for you to put it down and for, okay, all right. You, Councilor Cardwell, question
Yes. I think they're huddling.
about the cameras.
Huddling in the back, yeah.
Come on, Corey.
Cameras in the park. Question.
Yeah, but he wasn't here when this all began, so it's all from you guys.
So yeah, I mean, no, we've set up the account. It's got the money in it. We're working to purchase the cameras, so you know the process is moving forward.
That's not, okay, so I hear you.
Yeah.
That was like a clean answer.
Yeah.
I need to know, like, where are we? Because when it was told to the council, it was like, we have the cameras.
Right.
Not that we were purchasing them. We had the cameras.
Understood.
And they were gonna be done.
Okay.
So now you're saying we're looking at it, and that's
Well,
not good.
so I will get an update from Kevin Henry because he's really been taking the lead on this with the Parks Department. So I will get an update from him and I will provide that to the council. I can do that by the end of the day today. Okay.
I'm not happy with that. I'm just gonna keep it because part of the movement was because you said we have the cameras, we're gonna get them up ASAP. I walked through the parks, we talked to the staff, we talked about where they need to be. Since then, there's been incidents. I was there last night at an incident at a park, and we don't have them. So
okay.
I just want to see, you know, things get pushed in the background, and it shouldn't be because the community was told that the cameras were going up.
And they will.
When?
I will get that answer for you.
What about temporary cameras? Do we have access to those, you know, those trailers that, in the meantime? Like Lowe's parking lot has one?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there are a handful of them that I know they're deployed when we know there is illegal dumping, but I don't think it would meet necessarily the need of what we anticipated in the parks.
Well, if there is a hotspot issue with a particular park, or maybe patrols are the answer. We get police patrols that sit there before the cameras
I
get
just
installed.
wanted what was said that was going to be done. That's it. I'm just following through on what was told before we move forward on anything else. So I'm just concerned about that.
I will get you answers.
All right.
Thank you.
You weren't here.
But if I could interject, I was at an event that Commissioner Williams was on Saturday, and it was a well-run event, so was Councilor Peniagua. And for his first time out of the box, he did a real good job, I think, so.
Out of box. All right, so we're gonna get that information, hopefully, end of the day today for Councilor Cardwell and all of us. Let's go to item 40.
Okay, item 40 and 41, actually, same thing, two different doctors. We're requesting permission to hire Dr. William Cross, Dr. Rebecca Bernard Dunn to provide training and consultation with our peer support and wellness program people. Basically, those doctors come in, train our peer support people how to better support our officers. They'll respond if there's a critical incident to do like debriefs with the officers to make sure they're okay with what they may have had to do or see. This is just so we can hire those particular doctors who both have a large amount of experience dealing with law enforcement type situations.
How many officers are on the peer support team?
Approximately 10 or 12.
10 or 12, okay.
And then question for you, because I knew at some point when it came time to debrief for critical incidents, things like that, it wasn't a good, they weren't very receptive. Are they more receptive now to go and do this?
The officers?
Mm-hmm.
Mind if I call you up? Because you're part of the peer support team.
Y'all got new shirts.
That's a SWAT team.
Oh, okay.
Syracuse Police Department. I'm actually here representing the SWAT team. As far as that is concerned, I think you're speaking of officers themselves.
I'm sorry.
You're speaking of officers
Yes.
themselves being receptive. I think they are, and our peer support program has grown to the extent where they forward think. They know if somebody's involved in something, they'll reach out right away. I think it's becoming more commonplace now for people to actually realize that they've undergone a lot of stress and that they need to speak to somebody about it, whether it be one of our own folks or we refer them to a psychologist or another counselor. So I think it's becoming more commonplace now, absolutely.
Okay, because as long as me and Pat been here, we done watched the trend from being not receptive to being more receptive.
Yeah, it's been a difficult transition, but again, I think with the amount of training that we receive, especially in service and throughout the year with the department, that we understand that you need to speak about stress, you need to talk to somebody about it and not carry that with you the entire time. So I think people are actually learning more than they used to and are more receptive to learning about things of that nature.
So when they go to, I have several experiences with the cops that are ones that come after someone dies, especially in a home, right? And they're there. Do they have to, after going to a house and dealing with something like that, do they come back and have like a briefing report, and they just keep going?
So it depends on the situation. If it's just, let's say it's a DOA, there's nobody involved, but it's a scene that somebody may not have wanted to respond to. They have the opportunity to reach out to peer support, and sometimes, again, our folks will reach out to them based on the circumstances of that call. But it is not a requirement based on that. Now, if there is a different type of circumstance, there's an officer-involved shooting or something of that nature, that's something where it's going to be a prerequisite for them to talk to either one of our peer support specialists or a psychologist prior to coming back to duty.
Am I too old for SWAT?
No, ma'am, we don't put an age restriction on it.
But
I want to be SWAT.
I was going to say thank you guys for what you did on Glenwood the other day. That was very much
I think
needed.
between that and the North State call,
North State, yep,
I think
absolutely.
both of those have gone very well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Leave the police alone.
Item 42.
Item 42 is a request to enter an agreement with Paradigm Polygraph Associates to conduct polygraph examinations during our hiring process. That company is owned by a retired detective, or owned by a retired detective from SPD. Did polygraphs here for about 10 or 12 years before he retired. The need for that has to do with our current staffing levels. Several of the polygraphists that we have on staff are also part of the homicide squad. Unfortunately, they're really busy these days, so they don't have the ability to necessarily do all the polygraph exams we need during the hiring process and stay up on their duties on the homicide squad. So it's supplemental labor.
So I don't mean to put you on the spotlight with this polygraph in particular. Are you part of that team by any chance with polygraph?
No,
okay, all right. So you might not be able to answer this question because I do want to know how many people actually get signed off during the process because of polygraphs, and like to what parameter would they get knocked off for them to have to sign off with polygraphs, just to see like. So I had this big thing with polygraphs because they're not admissible. Well, not that, but it's, some of it is not admissible with you know, courts. You know what I mean? But we use it for our hiring process. I just want to know, just to get our numbers back up, you know, to
Mr. SWAT, you have an answer?
Yeah, you know the answer.
So to cite a specific percentage, I don't think we could do that.
Okay.
It is a small percentage. So based on the information that is received during the polygraph examination, that's something that's further investigated. Now, if it rises to a criminal type of action, obviously that's going to be an immediate type of sign-off.
Absolutely.
But if it does not, and it requires some more investigation by our background investigators, that'll continue to be done. So it's definitely not an automatic sign-off, depending upon how the answers are, because we understand the admissibility of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, item 43, and it looked like the real item for SWAT.
Yeah, Mr. SWAT.
I feel feel like there should be music playing, the SWAT music.
I'm looking for LL Cool J.
Go ahead.
Certainly, if I can answer the technical, I'll get back to it. This is just an agreement to enter into an upstate emergency medicine to have an actual surgeon with the SWAT team on training and on operations to provide a much higher level of medical care right on the spot for both citizens who might get injured and officers who might get injured during one of those operations. Rather, that way you have an actual trauma surgeon right there on the spot rather than having to worry about getting somebody up to upstate medical in a critical situation.
It makes sense.
10,000 per year or total for the 5 years?
10,000 per year.
Okay.
And again, that's an estimate. I believe they wanted, it was either $200 or $250 per hour when they're on an actual operation. They're not going to be charging us when they're involved in training. It's just if there's an actual call out and they're there, it's an hourly rate. It's the first time having somebody like that, so that we just took an estimate at how many hours we think it might be.
And so far, how many calls have they made with the SWAT team?
We haven't started using them on actual call outs, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the agreement to allow them to do that with us.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, ma'am, we've had in the past volunteers, Upstate University, obviously being a teaching hospital, they've sent different doctors throughout the years to come and assess our training and help with our TEMS medical programs, so we can actually treat officers on scene as well. So that's been ongoing for a few years now. This just gives us the ability to have somebody on call that is currently, because what happens is, in being a teaching hospital, they'll stay with us for a year or so, and then they'll go to another location. Like we just had Dr. Sun for a couple of years, fantastic guy. He was a military veteran. He was also an emergency doctor, emergency surgeon, and he volunteered our time, but then he moved to Boston. So it's kind of, there's been that open door policy here, and they allow us to train, we allow them to attend our training and learn what we do, and that allows them to put together some sort of study.
For you.
Exactly, study for us, but a study for them as well, as far as what their applicability could be with the SWAT team.
Okay, don't call me ma'am, call me Mrs. SWAT.
Can you give her like a code name? Diva.
Oh, man. I'm not the only one holding people back. 44.
44 is a waiver of the RFP process for ShotSpotter. We have two separate contracts with them, one for the initial install of ShotSpotter. This is for that north side expansion that went in a couple of years ago. We came to you guys early in the year to renew the main version. This is just to renew the second portion.
So how many more renewals will there be, or is this it? Because it was an install,
So this is just a one-year contract with them.
and you're done with this part.
Then we'll come back and, assuming we want to continue it, we'll come back and ask to renew it.
Yeah, so my question is, we have ShotSpotter all throughout the city, so why do we have different contracts? Because they were installed at different times?
Correct. The contracts are co-termed. I'm actually going to work with the vendor to try to get them co-termed as of next March when this one expires.
Yeah, because this fiscal year does not align with 23, 24. It's actually 22, 23, and 23, 24 with that time frame. I'm not a finance girl, but I'm sure it's all good, but it's a little confusing if you're trying to read it simply.
Sure.
Two items for council. Chose today, 39 and 44. I think we're doing good. 45, right?
45 is just asking for the council to appropriate the money for the vehicle capital project for fiscal year 24.
Hold on a second.
And it's not in, I'm looking for it. And we need the list of what we're trading out.
So it says 23 marked vehicles, 18 unmarked, 1 concealed identity vehicle, the evidence tech vehicle, a truck with aerial device, and a crime scene unit vehicle.
That's it. Here's what it is.
Replace existing. It's Rich. Rich is not here, is he?
He's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, the replacing, what they're replacing? No, it's not.
Yeah, it is, go to the attachment after the ordinance, it's attached to the ordinance,
Yes.
45.
Existing units, that's what they're replacing.
No, it just says replace existing. It doesn't say it's replacing a 2017 whatever. It doesn't say that with the
The
mileage.
breakdown of the, could you send that to us? Could you talk to Chief to send it to us? The list of what is outgoing?
Yep, we can get you a list, Counselor.
Okay, a list of what is outgoing, because all of this is what's anticipated to come in.
Yeah, and when he sends the outgoing list of what you're replacing, could you break it down by cost per vehicle, what we're paying for?
I'm not sure I quite understand what you're looking for, ma'am.
Like you're, says something, what does it say?
I think one
You're replacing a crime unit vehicle. Is that crime unit vehicle worth 55,000, 45,000?
How much are we getting for the old
that?
one?
It's the details in the cost.
Right.
Yeah, in terms of what we're getting, I mean, typically what we do is we run these things until there's nothing left,
We get that.
and we take them to auction, and they're worth
We get that.
maybe something.
But we need to know the mileage on it, but we also need to know what you're bringing in. Because we normally will get a list. The chief knows, just tell him we need the list.
Okay, I'll let them know.
Thank you.
Tell them next time when you come here, bring some donuts. For his absence. 46?
46 is the agreement to enter into an agreement with Onondaga County to provide outreach workers for person in crisis calls. I believe that's been discussed here, at least to a certain degree. Those are going to be the folks who, when the call comes into 911, there's going to be some sort of process to determine whether or not we can send county social workers, outreach workers to handle the call as opposed to police, whether police need to go with outreach workers, so on and so forth.
So they make, so they make the decision on the tactical, what's happening out there, because we have Liberty Resources too, right? Yeah, so.
The next phase of all of our diversionary response work we've been doing. So one thing that we found is that for many of the individuals who are persons in crisis that we see frequently in neighborhoods and downtown and neighborhoods, it's been Deputy Chief Russin that has been doing what amounts to social work and triage. So we spoke with the county to get 2 individuals who would actually do that, to be able to connect these, find out what services they're getting, what they're connected to, and how we can get them referred for some services to help with their frequent engagement
So they're
in
going
the
to be,
calls we
in
get.
essence, case managers.
Basically,
the people
yes.
that the officers see on the street all the time.
Yeah, basically. So the outreach that's going on now with Liberty Resources, that continues. But
Okay.
these are these folks that we see pretty frequently and want to be able to get a handle on what's going on in their lives.
Frequently too. I mean,
I know you do.
If you're out in the neighborhoods, I mean, this is terrific. This is a great idea, case manager.
More resources to tackle the folks that we're talking about when they're in crisis. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and get some long-term planning for them.
So they come in after the fact.
Excuse me, Sad?
So if a PIC call goes out, these individuals, after the police department have dealt with them, then they get referred to them, or?
So what likely could happen is an individual, there's a 911 call or 211 call. Our resources we have right now, whether it's My Father's Kitchen, whether it's Liberty Resource, they'll go out for the immediate need. What this program does is try to create a plan around what is going on with that individual that we keep going out to for this outreach. Many times there's a disconnect between the services they're providing. Do they have an existing doctor? What is the case? Are they actually homeless or not? Or their housing situation? So this gives us 2 individuals who can do that triage work. Because God love him, Detective Russin has been doing this, and we have better things for him, other things for him to do.
So the county's gonna oversee this, we're paying them.
The county will oversee it, and Detective Rustin works very closely, in particular with Jen Parmalee from the county office.
Are these county employees or are they?
So what the county does is they subcontract out. They do this with the school district. They do this with multiple mental health agencies they work with. It's actually more cost efficient to sub out with so we will get qualified individuals to do this work.
So are they 2 full-time
Full-time people.
equivalents? So,
Yep.
and they're only assigned to the city?
They are assigned, we are
county.
contracting for the purpose of our work with the police department.
Okay, just, okay.
And And I think it's cool because with being with the county, they can direct them to different services.
To all their
With Liberty
safety net
Resources,
programs.
They
Yep.
can't direct them to go get housing or food stamp or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're doing 2 right now. We'll see. We'll take a look at it and monitor how it's going. We think it's going to be very effective.
Now, is there a part where Latif come in here, or is that completely
We don't
different?
anticipate these folks are engaged in gun violence, but if there's a connection, absolutely. But we don't anticipate these folks are those individuals.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the dumbest question ever, but I'm going to ask it because it came up in my brain, so I'm
Let
going
him
to
have it,
ask
Madam
it.
President. Let him have it.
No, just the question, because I know we have Catholic Charities, we have Rescue Mission, we have all of these entities that basically work or service or house these individuals.
Sure.
This is a dumb question. Do we have a count, any type of a number of these folks that we're talking about?
So this ecosystem is multifaceted. And the reason I say that is because most of their operations are funded through New York State. But the relationship, because of service provision, is with the county. So it is really the county that has the relationship with the ongoing operations of our shelters. We work with them, obviously, quite a bit because of the individuals who we're seeing throughout the city and the neighborhoods. But that kind of structure is definitely funding through the state. So anytime, for example, we talked about Catholic Charities Shelter on Erie Boulevard, the application was to New York State. The support for their operations is the county.
Somebody has a number trail, somebody has a...
Yeah, probably Onondaga County or the agency directly.
It's called HISMIS. So there is a housing homeless coalition that has a whole housing system that if you come through any of those pieces, there's a data that is tracked amongst all of them so they can see. So it's called HISMIS. There is one.
Yep, we have actually a pretty comprehensive system.
Oh, yeah.
And they all, so the Housing and Homeless Coalition, they manage all of this process.
And I know they do for the housing and the homeless, but you got some out here that no necessarily, they're not being housed, but they're wrecking havoc all the way through downtown. And I'm sure somebody knows who they are because they probably go to Samaritan to eat or Rescue Mission to eat. So there should be a mechanism.
Even if they're not a housing entity, they're serving that population. And so they're all contributing to that data.
To the data?
Yes.
Okay. And now for the gentleman behind you, I can't remember. Just say your name again.
Lutz.
Ryan Lutz, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Lutz, not ma'am, Mr. Swat. But question for you, right? So I know at one point we had a huge influx of non-New York residents coming into our city. And they would go and camp out at the Rescue Mission. And they would go under the guise of being homeless while they were selling dope. Are those people still around?
I'm not going to lie to you. I sit behind a desk now. I'm honestly not sure.
Okay.
Do you guys have any idea?
Okay, I'm asking you questions, okay.
Okay, I just figured I'd ask.
So a couple things are going on. So particularly, for example, under the railroad bridge, not just the part, before we got to the point where we fenced it off, there was a collective team of individuals going out there that brought in the service providers, the NBD team, SPD, to try to proactively engage individuals, to get them connected to services. So those service providers were in that teams too. We had it there. We moved it over to Butternut a couple of times. So we do that proactively in an attempt to try to coax people into service provision. Some people have the right to, and many of those folks refuse the service. And so, so part of the other part that we're addressing, some of the panhandling, as you guys may have seen, is we have that detail.
Oh, I may have seen what?
That detail that's out, that's engaging the panhandling, particularly because it's a huge safety issue.
See, my concern was because I know that lady, they just sentenced her big time. Her and her little cocaine ring came in in Syracuse, New York, and they camped out at Rescue Mission, and they peddled their dope.
Yeah.
And they just gave her something like 15 years for that. So I'm wondering, because I know they were coming back and forth from New Jersey and New York to settle here to sell to our addicted people.
So our team does our investigations. We get tips from people all the time, and we do the investigations that lead to the data to get people prosecuted.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor, before you sit down, with this going in and this and the city paying for these two positions, what is the current plan, or what's the activity currently with the county? How do they deal with something like this?
So this relationship is new. I'm really birthed out of the mind of Detective Rustin, who is always thinking about this, and just seeing basically from the operations from SPD, the need to have someone that he can turn to be able to, John Doe, Mr. Smith, he's a repeated individual that our patrol are running into. And so we want you to really find out who he is and find out what services we have. We're really going to learn a lot from this process. Hopefully, the hope is, of course, it will be very impactful to get people stabilized.
So from what I'm understanding, does it mean that the county has no infrastructure at all in how they handle individuals like this? Or at least what we are trying to solve?
So they have quite a few departments and infrastructure that happens, but the issue is that many of these folks are hard to serve individuals. And so they refuse services constantly. And so sometimes, and I hate to put it this way, but the weather forces people into service provision sometimes because it just gets to be too cold here to be just out and about. But this is a proactive way for us to engage individuals that we're spending a lot of resources on with our police department, trying to get these folks into service. And because we don't want to criminalize behavioral health or homelessness.
It's just aligned. They have a whole department of social services over there. They have a lot of well-trained people, adult protective and all that. So this, I have to commend you on integrating this
Making
with
the
our
connection.
city police department. I also have to mention the city police department has been very aggressive, which is a good word for some of the panhandling, because I know we're following up on warrants that have been issued, and sometimes it helps to get those folks up to off the street. And what President Hudson said, particularly behind the Salt City Market and all that. I mean, obviously, the rescue mission doesn't let anybody high or drinking into the rescue mission.
Yeah.
And there was that gathering outside that Deputy Chief Russin addressed. So
We're also working with the
making
rescue
progress.
mission on some CEPTED ideas for their footprint that's closer to their buildings there, because some people have pushed back into the campus. So we've given them they're going to do some new fencing back there. We're going to, with Steve Harris, trim back some of the overgrowth back there. They're going to work on
Kapowski. Andy's been back there.
amazing, particularly some of the encampments that even go under the bridge. So.
And that's great, because that means
It's
that,
ongoing. It never
Rustin
stops.
doesn't have to continue to be a case manager.
That's what he's
We can
been.
turn it back to the county.
Right.
Okay.
Item 47.
The Transcend Tactical Vantage robot from Airworks LLC. It's a piece of equipment for the SWAT team.
Which is phenomenal. I watched that robot. I watch a lot of stuff. It's phenomenal.
You watch sewer scoping? Sorry, never mind.
No, I don't want to see sewer scoping.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that one, too.
48 is another waiver of competitive bid requested to purchase a thermal imaging pole camera and a dual view under the door camera for the SWAT team from Zistos Corporation.
Any questions?
We already have these? and
Well,
You already have these? This is just buying another one?
Do we have any of those currently?
Madam Swat? Yes, ma'am? We currently do. Most of this technology we have is greater than 10 years old. The robot that we actually have right now is not even serviceable anymore. That company's gone out of business or have pursued other interests, let's say. So that's not serviceable, does not operate. Camera system we have is antiquated as well. This will allow us to upgrade these types of equipment.
So this works with the robot, this thermal pole? or no?
So they are two separate things. The actual robot itself is independently controlled. The pole cameras are actually handheld, and we can use them in different type of applications.
And before Cho answers the question, I got to ask you this, right? Because at some point you had 2 robots, right?
So you might be thinking of the bomb squad.
That's, yeah.
They do have probably the best technology we have robot-wise. They are not assigned to the SWAT team. We do not operate those. They are not always available for call-outs for us. They independently operate, and they go out for different calls of service than we do. So this allows us to have our own robot while we're on scene, something that we can deploy right away. The way we look at it is if there's anything we can utilize to prevent some sort of face-to-face confrontation, those are the tools we're going to utilize before we do any sort of technique or tactic. It just allows us to gives us a little bit of an advantage and does decrease the risk to officers or the citizen themselves.
So I'm not saying it, but if any of you happen to go by a SWAT situation, I would suggest you pay attention. I watch one.
There's not much we hide.
Any other questions? Madam SWAT, that's all for me.
Taking Councilor Allen's items, we'll start with 49.
Hello, Councilors. Josh Wilcox, Parks Department. Item 49 is application agreement with the Preservation League of New York State to enter into a grant application for $5,000. There's a 20% requirement from our end, so $1,000. This is for the restoration study for the restoration of the Elmwood Stone Mill House building.
Come on now.
Any questions?
No, Cho like it, let's go.
Cool. Thank you.
And then item 50 is an honorary street sign naming. Up at Blue Tusk. My understanding is Councilor Boyle. She wants to come on Monday and introduce it. So.
Is Blue Tusk still here? No. I didn't think so.
No, it's been vacant, and it's very sad. So this sign is going to make me happy and sad at the same time because it was such an amazing business that the community loved, and it's vacant. So let's hope it encourages somebody to move
I have
in.
one more question. When he talked about the Stone Mill House, I don't know, if not you, sir, either Commissioner or Corey, because that brought me back to the one over there in Kirk. What are we doing with that building, that stone building in Kirk? Oh, maybe it is you. Okay, come on up. Come on down.
So Traveler's Rest is on the other side of Kirk Park,
Yeah.
across the creek. Right now, it's used mostly for storage. There's a lot of roofing materials that we have stored in there. There is an asbestos problem in there, so we do have to go through a full asbestos abatement. Other than that, we have it in our plans to do the actual assessment, but no real plans for
You
reactivation.
don't know when that's going to happen.
No, not right now. These grants, like the technical assistance grants, help us to do that restorative study.
And then we're going to have to remove all because it's historical. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know when that building might go back online.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about a lot internally, and we'll continue to consider it.
But with the creek running in there,
Yeah.
we throwing canoes everywhere. Why don't we open that back up, throw some canoes in there and let them ride?
It would be a great place.
It really would. All righty, thank you. I need a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor? Oh, meeting over.
Madam SWAT.
Yeah, I'm Madam SWAT.
Madam.